Today in the shop, we have my 2004 Volkswagen R32, and for the first time, out of many Volkswagens that I've owned, over many, many years, it actually broke down and left me stranded. So with every failure of a car, there's a story behind it, and most of the time it's like super boring. I was driving along, boom, check engine light popped on. However, this one, I'm good now because it's over, but it actually broke down right as I was pulling up through the drive-thru at the cookout. Just before I ordered, the car just completely cut off. So I had the pleasure of pushing my car through the cookout checkout or drive-thru lane off to the side to wait for a tow truck. Now fortunately, I was able to pull faults in my instrument cluster and found out that it had an engine speed sensor fault. This is actually a super common VR6 issue, so in this video, we're going to diagnose it a little bit more than throwing parts at a fault, and I'll show you guys how to replace it. So the engine RPM sensor, or as Volkswagen identifies it as G28, is the sensor that monitors rotation of the crankshaft. In most Volkswagens, if the ECM does not see this signal coming back from the crank position sensor, it's not going to start. So there's a couple of pretty easy ways to diagnose it, even if you don't have the instrument cluster where you can pull the fault up. If your car won't start and it sounds like it should start, you don't have any crazy like low compression sounds like that GLI we had, the easiest thing to do is crank your car and see if you have RPM signal. The tachometer should actually move. You should see it rotating. You can also do this in the scan tool with actually a little bit better accuracy, I think, but look, most of us don't carry scan tools around with us everywhere we go. Even though if we drive a Volkswagen, maybe we should know better and carry that scan tool with us. So if you crank the car and you're not seeing any RPM signal, odds are that is the place of the failure. That does not mean that the sensor is bad. That just means that that's probably the place you have a failure. I also found that there's a few fuses, if you pull them, you also lose RPM signals. So keep that in mind. But let's say we do try and start our car and we don't have any crank signal. We hook up our scan tool, we confirm we have a G28 code. What do we do next? Well, if you're a shop, you really want to verify that by both cranking with the scan tool and monitoring RPM. You might even want to hook up the oscilloscope and actually scope that RPM signal to see if you're getting it out of the sensor. We know the ECM's not seeing it, but we want to see, is it the sensor side? Is it wiring to the ECM or something I have never seen? The ECM actually not seeing that signal. Oh well, everything else is good. Now replacing the sensor is actually pretty straightforward, especially if you don't have a huge belly pan like I have here. But you are going to need to at least get the front of the car off the ground, and if you have a skid plate like this one or the factory one, get it out of the way. Our crank position sensor lives right at the front of our engine. Here's our oil filter. This bracket actually holds the secondary air pump on, and our sensor's located just behind this bracket. Like if you were to peek back up through this way, you would see the sensor, the wiring wraps behind the oil filter and then goes up. So we're gonna need to get this bracket out of the way. This is also a good opportunity to check your secondary air pump mounts, which over time, like mine, do come apart. So if these are all broken, you want to get them replaced, it's a good time to just go ahead and get them both done at the same time. First thing we're going to do is get these two number 5 Allens out of our way. And there's actually a number 6 Allen tucked right up here. You'll see this hole right here in like the bottom of the block, the bottom of the oil pan. That bolt lives right above it. You can get this sensor out without removing this bracket. However, it makes it way easier just to get it out of the way. Now we can kind of move this whole thing over to the side. You can take it out if you want, especially if you're doing your secondary air pump mounts, but I don't have mounts because I didn't plan for that. Now I went ahead and took the bracket and the pump and all that out of the way, mostly so that you guys can see what I'm doing. You don't need to take all this stuff out. You can work around it. Before you go to taking that sensor out though, it's a good idea to clean some of this dirt and yuck out of here. That way you don't run the risk of all this nonsense getting in our block. You don't need to do like a engine rebuild level cleaning here. Just spraying it with some brake parts cleaner might be good enough, really. We're gonna then get our number 5 Allen. I prefer not to use a ball end socket here. I prefer to use the flat tip style. That way we don't risk rounding this out. This is a pain in the butt spot. You don't want to have to extract a bolt here. Normally they come out pretty easy, but just as a precautionary, don't use a ball end if you don't have to. There's our one bolt that holds our sensor in. Now sometimes these do get kind of frozen in the block. That happens, instead of trying to pull it straight out, try and rotate the sensor like that, back and forth. And then usually you can kind of grab it at the bottom and wiggle it out. If you need some assistance, sometimes a long flat blade screwdriver will help. Just try and rock it out. Don't just try and like pull it, like pry on one side only or the other, because you really don't want to break this. That'll be an unfun sensor to have to drill out. You don't want it to break like right here and be stuck in the block. Now, if you can look through that little hole right there, you would see the sensor wheel on the crankshaft. So that is what our G28 right here is looking at. You'll notice our wiring harness follows around the oil filter. There is a retainer that you have to pop off. Get that guy out of there. And then your plug is actually up quite a bit higher. You can see it right here. Mine wasn't even locked all the way in that little retainer there. This might be the hardest part of this whole job, is getting to this connector right here, especially when it's properly secured in the bracket. So go ahead and unplug that. And here is our sensor. Okay, so here we have our crank position sensor, and I have it hooked up to the multimeter set to ohms, which, as we know, resistance is not really the best way to test. However, I think this is going to be able to let me show you a pretty accurate representation of what I think happened. So as you can see, these wires are shielded inside of this loom right here. And what I've found typically happens is right here, kind of where the wiring loom goes into the sensor body, the wires start to come apart. And what happens when they get hot, they start to lose contact. Typically when this fails, if you let the car sit for about a half an hour, the car will end up starting again. But let's see if we can heat this up and see if it gets an open circuit or at least super high resistance. So as you can see, as we got that wiring pretty warm, our resistance climbed up quite a bit. Now, even though it wasn't a super hot day, with the car running for 15 or so minutes, sitting and not moving, probably not out of range of where we got this wire to just with our heat gun. Now, is this enough to make it completely die? Honestly, I don't know. But in that short amount of time, you can see how much our resistance changed just by heating it up. Now, as luck, or maybe laziness would have it, I actually have a VR6 block opened up. So that works out really well for us. Here is the pickup wheel for our engine speed sensor. There's a little probe right here on the engine speed sensor, and where this sits into the block, it kind of sits like this. So the G28 is an inductive sensor. As soon as the engine turns, this sensor wheel will move past G28, and that generates AC voltage. The frequency and amplitude both change with engine speed. Now there's also this one section right here where it's missing some teeth. This is the spot that the ECM uses to identify where in the crank rotation the crankshaft is. Now this spot may not correlate exactly to like TDC piston cylinder 1, but it's what the ECM uses to calculate where it's at. And for good or bad, if it doesn't see this signal from the crankshaft, if it doesn't see that this is rotating based on the reading of our sensor, you're not going to get a car that's going to start. This is done to help protect the engine in case there's a problem. So if we install our sensor, in theory anyway, if I rotate this fast enough, we should be able to pick up an AC signal with our sensor. Now I tried and I couldn't really rotate it fast enough. Maybe if we hooked it up to an oscilloscope, we'd be able to see these readings. It's probably not something we're gonna see this slow on a multimeter. Now, since we have it, let's go ahead and open up this wire loom. And then, oh my gosh, look at all that. I mean, granted, I'm pulling on it, but the sheathing's just like non-existent. Normally, I mean, you know, obviously I'm pulling it pretty aggressively, but we shouldn't have our wires just completely come apart like that, like the sheathing and everything. Even at the connector end, this is just completely crumbling apart. No wonder we had a fail. I'm actually surprised we didn't have a failure sooner than we did, because that's a pretty sad state of affairs. So usually what I found is like more so right here where it kind of curves into its resting spot. It actually kind of curves down like this. This is the place where I've seen this fail the most, and typically the rest of the wiring is okay. But yeah, this is this is extreme. So yeah, I guess I'm thankful that it didn't break down somewhere really unhappy. But all right, enough of this. Let's go ahead and get our new one in and our car wrapped up. All right, we have our new sensor with with all the fresh sheathing and everything like that. Now you'll notice there is a seal on the sensor. You want to make sure you lubricate that seal with some dielectric grease or some clean engine oil. We don't want to go into our hole without a little bit of lubricant. Also, you want to make sure you clean out the port for our sensor. Make sure there's no yuck inside of there. We want to make sure we don't create an oil leak that we didn't have before. Then with our seal nice and lubricated, we install our sensor. You really want to make sure this goes in nice and easy. If you don't feel like it went in pretty easy, make sure that you take it back out and recheck it. What you want to also not do is get it halfway installed and then run the bolt in to pull the sensor in the rest of the way. That's going to install the sensor crooked. It's probably going to tear the seal, so you're going to end up with, in best case scenario, an oil leak. Worst case scenario, a sensor that instead of sitting flush is going to sit cockeyed and it won't read our crankshaft, and then you're going to have a car that may not start. Then we can go ahead and take our bolt, put that back in. You also want to make sure that you route your harness back where it needs to go, including making sure you get the wire in this loom right here, up behind the filter. I usually plug it in first and then get it locked into place. Make sure that makes a good connection so you're not dealing with a partially. Then go ahead and make sure you get it back up where it's supposed to live, way up in this bracket up here. Now we just got to tuck our wire back in our loom on this side, and we are done installing our sensor. Now at this point, you can lower the car down and try and start it and just make sure everything starts. You might get a check engine light for secondary air because we still don't have our secondary air pump hooked back up. If you're confident, go ahead and put that secondary air pump back on, get your belly pan back on, and see if your car starts. Okay, that was a pretty sad sensor. However, pretty straightforward, easy diagnosis, and a pretty easy repair. Now, I'm gonna have to go back and replace those bumpers on my secondary air pump, so I'm not gonna put the belly pan or anything on like that. Also, something I need to be really clear on. If you're having a cam position sensor fault or a crank position sensor fault, and your car runs, maybe it runs poorly, or maybe it's sporadic, you might wanna consider not just putting a sensor on it. Oftentimes, especially on the turbo Volkswagen and Audi cars, that cam position sensor fault is because there actually is an oil pressure issue or there is a timing issue. These are pretty good about not having those kind of problems, but remember, we don't want to just throw a sensor in every single time. Even on this car, we did a bit more diagnosis than just throwing the sensor in. We monitored for RPM on the instrument cluster while cranking and with the scan tool. So if you're having some kind of other issue with cam position or crank position, do not forget to check timing, especially if your car runs poor or doesn't sound right when it's starting, because you might have another issue. So we got the R32 all fixed up. Now I know there's gonna be jokes. Of course it's broken. It's a Volkswagen. I get it. Those are funny too, and I can make those jokes as well. In fact, I really enjoy making those jokes. With that, I'm out. Have an awesome day, and I'll talk to you again next time. Bye-bye.